Lend me a few minutes and I'll erase the illusion of weakness that has haunted you your whole life. Not with empty motivation, not with recycled cliches, not with the hollow promises that collapse the moment life presses against them, but by showing you the truth. What you call weakness is not who you are. It is not your identity, and it has never been your fate. Weakness is a story, a narrative you've repeated so many times that you've mistaken it for reality. A set of lies rehearsed until they became comfortable, and a mask worn so convincingly that you eventually forgot it wasn't your real face. And if you're willing to listen without flinching, if you allow yourself to feel the discomfort instead of running from it, something inside you will crack. And what shatters won't be the real you, but the false shell, the fragile surface that was never meant to survive. What comes after isn't a so-called better version of yourself, the kind of language reserved for self-help slogans and corporate seminars. What comes back is the version that was always there, the one buried beneath years of apologies, conformity, hesitation, and fear. Nietzsche never wrote for the fragile or for those looking to be comforted. He wrote for the ones who were exhausted by lies, who were ready to face the violence of existence with their eyes open, and who understood that no rescue was coming. If you've reached that point, if you're finished waiting for permission or salvation, then this is not your transformation. It is your return, because strength was never outside you. It was never absent. It was only buried. Buried under self-doubt, buried under cultural training, buried beneath the addictive comforts you mistook for love. So let us begin by asking, what is weakness? Most people will tell you weakness means fragility, crying too much, being soft, lacking discipline. But Nietzsche would disagree. Weakness is not the act of expressing emotion, it is the habit of submitting to it. Weakness is the constant need for permission. Weakness is outsourcing your worth to people who barely know themselves. Weakness is choosing peace even when truth must be spoken, and disguising fear as humility, laziness as self-care, hesitation as kindness. Weakness is not the absence of strength. Weakness is the presence of self-betrayal. And here lies the brutal truth. The modern world is designed to keep you weak. Your education trained you to obey. Your culture conditioned you to conform. Your media floods you with despair disguised as awareness. And even the people who claim to love you often benefit from your weakness. They praise your restraint, they reward your passivity, and they applaud your silence. Not because it serves you, but because it keeps you predictable, small, and forgettable. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." He wasn't describing a physical struggle, but a psychological resistance. The struggle to remain true to your instincts when the world demands you neuter them. The struggle to remain dangerous, not in a reckless or violent sense, but dangerous as a presence that cannot be ignored. And so the first step to erasing weakness is this: stop confusing weakness with goodness. You were taught that saying no is rude, that choosing yourself is selfish, that asserting your boundaries is arrogance. Nietzsche flips that upside down. Real strength, the kind that commands respect, comes not from being liked, but from refusing to soften yourself for approval, from standing apart from the herd, from embracing the tension that comes with being real. So ask yourself honestly, who are you without the need to be liked? Strip away the filters, stop editing yourself for acceptance. If no one demanded your politeness or your endless apologies, who would you be? What would you demand? What would you walk away from? What would you finally say out loud? Most people cannot answer because they've never truly met themselves. They've only met their mask. And Nietzsche despised masks, calling them the slow death of the human spirit, because the moment you silence your instincts for approval, you have already surrendered your strength. And you can feel it. That quiet resentment, that exhaustion that never disappears, that simmering anger beneath the surface. That isn't burnout. That's the cost of weakness, the cost of betraying yourself in 1,000 small ways every single day just to keep the surface smooth. Weakness doesn't crash into your life all at once. It seeps in slowly, creeping through the small cracks of your daily routines, hiding inside habits that look harmless on the surface, until one day you wake up and realize that the little things you've repeated have either sharpened you into someone resilient or quietly rotted your willpower without you even noticing. Nietzsche captured this truth in one brutal line: "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." That is exactly how weakness works. Every time you fail to command yourself, every time you hand over control of your choices, you leave the door wide open for someone else to step in and command you instead. And they always will. Your boss, your culture, your devices, even strangers who have no stake in your life will happily take that power from you. Think about your mornings. The very moment your eyes open, what do you do first? Do you reach for your phone, start scrolling, check notifications before you've even checked in with yourself? It feels trivial, almost harmless, but in that single choice you've already surrendered. You've allowed the outside world to dictate your mood, your focus, and your energy before you've even drawn a full breath. That is weakness, not because technology is evil, but because reactivity has defeated you before you've created a single thing of your own. Strength begins when you claim your mornings, when you decide that before you consume, you will create, before you scroll, you will breathe, before you let the noise of others fill your head, you will confront your own silence. Weakness is losing the morning, strength is owning it. The same is true of your speech. Weakness slips into the way you talk about yourself, the way you dilute your sentences to make them safer, the way you apologize for things that don't need an apology, or lower your voice so that no one feels threatened. Every maybe when you mean no, every I don't know when you do, every sorry uttered just to smooth over nothing at all. These are the small leaks where your power drains away, and people can sense it. That's why they interrupt you, why they talk over you, why your presence doesn't quite land, because your words carry hesitation instead of force. Nietzsche never whispered. He wrote like fire was running through his pen, and he expected you to do the same, not by being loud, but by being unmistakably clear. Clarity is force. When you speak with clarity, people feel it. They stop drifting, they lean in, they recognize weight. So stop diluting yourself. Say what you mean without disclaimers, state your position without circling it, and when you finish speaking, allow the silence to hang heavy. Most people are terrified of silence. You will not be, because silence is tension, and tension is power. But weakness doesn't live only in your words. It hides in your body, in your posture, your breath, your movement. Look around you, and you'll see how many people move like prey. Shoulders collapsed, eyes down, breaths shallow. Every gesture announcing, "Don't notice me, don't challenge me, don't expect too much." That isn't neutrality, it's submission. You can tell someone's entire story by the way they sit in a chair, by how they enter a room, by the rhythm of their breath when no one is watching. So change your body. Stand like someone who claims space without asking. Walk like someone who expects to be followed. Sit like someone who belongs wherever they choose to be. This isn't performance, it's alignment. The outer frame teaching the inner core how to remember its power. And then we come to emotion, the deepest place where weakness hides. Most people mistake strength for numbness. They think shutting feelings down makes them disciplined, but Nietzsche never preached emptiness. He preached command. Real strength is not the absence of feeling, but the ability to experience the full flood of it and still choose your action deliberately. Weakness is emotion without awareness, reacting automatically, exploding at insults, collapsing at disappointment. Strength is emotion under control. When someone disrespects you, you don't chase, you don't defend, you don't explain. You stay still, you breathe, and when you finally respond, it's precise, calculated, surgical. That is the difference. Weakness reacts, strength responds. Every time you choose response over reaction, your power hardens, your presence deepens, and the illusion of weakness dissolves a little more. Because weakness has never been one dramatic collapse, it's always the accumulation of small surrenders. It hides in your mornings, your speech, your posture, your emotions. And Nietzsche's warning still echoes. If you cannot command yourself, you will be commanded. The only question left is, how much of your life has already been lived under someone else's command? Yourself, in the way you explain your life, and in the frame you use to interpret your struggles. And here Nietzsche is merciless, because if there's one thing he despised above all else, it was victimhood. He saw it as the modern form of slavery, chains not around your hands but around your mind, shackles made not of iron but of belief. Victimhood is the endless habit of blaming others, the quiet expectation of rescue, the way stagnation masks itself as healing while nothing truly changes. Nietzsche never denied pain. Pain is real, trauma is real, life cuts deeply. But what he denied was passivity, the transformation of pain into an identity that you carry like a badge. The brutal truth is that the world does not care about what happened to you, not really. It only cares about what you become despite it. If all you become is anxious, bitter, fragile, and endlessly apologetic, then your story has conquered you. But if you take your pain and refine it into steel, if you forge your scars into armor, then your story becomes your strength. That is why you must stop narrating your life as if it were a tragedy. Stop recycling your wounds into excuses and stop weaponizing your past just to gather sympathy. Instead, transmute it, refine it, and let it make you untouchable. That is strength. But weakness has deeper roots than victimhood, and one of the deepest is the hunger to belong. From childhood, you were trained to seek inclusion, raise your hand for permission, stay inside the group, follow the tribe, avoid standing out, never disturb the peace. And slowly you became addicted, not to love, but to acceptance, the dead and passive kind of belonging that requires you to shrink, to silence yourself, to polish your edges smooth until nothing dangerous remains. Nietzsche would look directly into your eyes and say, if you are ever to truly know yourself, you must be willing to stand alone, utterly and completely. Because belonging always comes with a price, and that price is your individuality, your authenticity, your power. If you wish to erase weakness, you must unlearn this addiction to acceptance. You must become the kind of person who doesn't beg for a seat at the table, but builds their own table. And if no one joins you, good. That only leaves you with more space, more clarity, and more truth. The first upgrade is always solitude over submission. Now let's expose another mask of weakness: procrastination. Most people believe procrastination is laziness, but Nietzsche would have said otherwise. Procrastination is loyalty, a secret contract you once signed with your past self to remain small, to stay safe, to avoid shining too brightly. Somewhere in your history, you learned that ambition invited punishment, that honesty created distance, that power made people pull away. So you adapted. You learned to dim yourself, to delay your actions, to second-guess your own momentum. You called it laziness, but it was survival. The problem is that you never tore up that contract, and so you've been honoring it long after it stopped protecting you. Nietzsche would have called that cowardice, because procrastination is not about lack of energy. It is about fear of outgrowing the people who will not follow you, fear of becoming someone they no longer recognize. Weakness is loyalty to a smaller version of yourself. Strength is betrayal of that contract. So betray it, break it, tear it up. At the root of all of this, victimhood, belonging, procrastination, lies a single fear: the fear of being alone. And Nietzsche would remind you that if you cannot stand alone, you cannot stand at all. Because only in solitude do you stop performing. Only in solitude do you meet yourself without disguise, and only in solitude do you realize that weakness was never your true nature. It was the compromise you made to feel safe. So choose solitude over imitation, authenticity over belonging, and decisive action over delay. That is the moment where weakness begins to die. Nietzsche once wrote, "The snake which cannot shed its skin must die." And that is the perfect image of weakness, because weakness at its core is nothing more than the refusal to evolve, the refusal to cast off the skin of who you used to be, the refusal to release the identities that once kept you safe, but now only keep you small. You've carried these versions of yourself for years, the people pleaser who always gave in, the second guesser who never trusted their own voice, the over-explainer who tried to justify every move, and the one who softened truth just to avoid judgment. But these aren't your essence, they are temporary layers you've mistaken for who you are. And if you refuse to shed them, they will eventually suffocate you. That is why weakness must end here, not gently, not gradually. You don't peel away the skin piece by piece, you rip it off. And it begins with language. Every word you speak either strengthens your spine or erodes it. Every unnecessary apology slices into your backbone. Every maybe when you mean no. Every I don't know when deep down you do. Every sorry for simply existing. These are fractures, and weakness thrives in fractures, seeping through until you are hollow. The first step is to change your words. Stop apologizing for your presence. Stop dulling your edges so that others can feel comfortable, and start speaking with precision, with clarity, with a force that leaves no space for misinterpretation. And when people call you rude, let them, because that reaction only means they were nourished for too long by your softness, and now they resent the fact that you no longer make yourself small for their convenience. That's not a failure, that's strength. But strength is not only in your words, it must also live in your body. Weakness hides in how you carry yourself, in slouched shoulders, shallow breathing, movements that announce to the world, "Don't notice me, don't challenge me, don't expect too much." But your body is your first declaration of strength. Stand like someone who never asks for permission. Walk like someone who expects to be followed. Sit like someone who belongs everywhere without question. This is not arrogance, it is sovereignty. It is not about performance, it is about alignment. True presence does not come from pretending. It comes from knowing so deeply what you believe in that your posture, your breath, and even your silence announce it before you say a single word. And here Nietzsche's lesson cuts deepest. If you have no standards, you have no strength. Ask yourself, what do I believe in so fully that I would walk away from anything that violates it? Write it down, memorize it, live by it. Weakness isn't only the failure to stand tall, it's the failure to know what you stand for. That's why so many crumble under pressure. Their values are borrowed, their convictions are vague, their lives are built on sand. But strength is granite. Strength is saying, "This is who I am. This is what I will not compromise. This is where I draw the line." And once you've drawn that line, every room you enter feels it. That is presence. That is sovereignty. And still, weakness thrives on masks. You've worn them to belong, to avoid conflict, to survive. You've worn them so consistently that you forgot they were never truly yours. Nietzsche would tell you, masks may protect you in the moment, but over time they kill you. Because every time you silence your truth for approval, you shrink. Every time you bury your instincts for acceptance, you surrender. And with each surrender, you die a little, long before death itself arrives. So take off the mask, even if your voice shakes, even if people leave, even if the herd turns against you. Because the moment you shed that skin, the moment you drop the mask, the real you finally breathes again. And when that happens, weakness has nothing left to cling to. Modern culture has learned to glorify suffering. It teaches you to wear your wounds like medals, to introduce yourself by your traumas, to build your very identity around what broke you rather than around what you became because of it. Nietzsche despised this, not because pain isn't real, but because he saw clearly that pain is the raw material of life, the forge through which strength is built. What he hated was the way people turn their suffering into a permanent mask, into a personality they cling to, chaining themselves forever to the very thing that should have been left behind. When you make your pain into your identity, you stop evolving. You stop shedding skins. You become addicted to weakness, loyal to the small story that keeps you trapped. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The world doesn't care what you survived. It only cares what you became in the aftermath. If all you became was fragile, bitter, and endlessly anxious, then you surrendered to the story. But if you became sharp, clear, and unshakable, then you transform the story into steel. Weakness says, "Look what happened to me." Strength says, "Look what I built anyway." That's why you must rewrite your story. Stop narrating your life like a tragedy. Stop rehearsing your scars as excuses. Stop demanding sympathy as proof of your worth. Instead, change the language of your identity. Don't say, "I was abandoned." Say, "I learned to stand alone." Don't say, "I was broken." Say, "I became unbreakable." Don't say, "I have anxiety." Say, "I trained stillness." Words are not decoration. They are weapons. They are spells. Every time you speak weakness into existence, you reinforce it. Every time you speak strength, you summon it into being. So guard your words carefully, because the story you tell yourself is never just reflection. It is creation. Weakness also thrives on excuses. You've said them before. "I'm too tired. I'm not ready. I'm not like them," Nietzsche would tell you plainly. Excuses are camouflage. They aren't protection, they're fear in disguise. They hide the real truth, that you are afraid of who you might become if you stopped making them. Because without excuses, you would be left with no one to blame, no shield to hide behind, no more delay, no more comfort, only the raw, demanding work of becoming. And that reality terrifies most people. But here's the paradox. The moment you let go of excuses, you realize you never needed them. You realize growth was always possible, that evolution was always available, and that it was weakness that convinced you to wait. So drop the excuses, burn them. Refuse to speak them ever again. This is the fork in the road Nietzsche leaves you with. It is brutal. It is clear. Once you know the truth, you cannot unknow it. Once you see weakness for what it is, you cannot pretend you don't. From here, you either evolve or you decay. There is no neutrality. Weakness is not an accident. It is a decision. Strength is not a gift. It is a commitment. And the line between the two is razor thin. So the question becomes, will you betray weakness or will you betray yourself? Nietzsche never believed in waiting. He never believed in gentle transitions. He believed in rupture, in confrontation, in moments where you look directly into the mirror and say, "This ends now." The man who does not evolve dies before death. That is the spirit of Nietzsche. Weakness is a slow death, a decay of the spirit long before the body collapses. Strength, by contrast, is life. Not comfort, not safety, but life in its sharpest, rawest form. And you already know which one feels true in your bones. So choose, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, not after another delay. Choose now, because if you refuse, weakness will choose for you. By now, you already know the truth. Weakness was never your nature. It was your training. It was the mask you wore for approval, the contract you signed with fear, the disguise you convinced yourself was real. But here's the brutal part. Once you see weakness for what it is, you can never unsee it. Once you recognize that weakness is self-betrayal, you cannot go back to living as if nothing has changed. From this moment on, every excuse, every delay, every compromise will taste bitter, because now you know better. And when you know better, there are only two paths left to you. You either evolve or you lie. Nietzsche never respected the loudest voices, the richest men, or the ones most praised by the crowd. What he respected was presence, the human being who could stand without apology, who didn't filter himself to fit the herd, who radiated conviction without needing a single drop of validation. Presence does not come from aggression or force. It comes from clarity, from knowing exactly what you believe in and refusing to betray it. So, when you walk into a room, do not shrink, do not bend, do not calculate what will make others like you. Stand as if your very existence is enough, because it is. Weakness asks, "Am I allowed to be here?" Strength declares, "I am here, and that is enough." But here's the catch. Strength is not a one-time decision. It is a standard, and it must be guarded every single day. Each morning you will feel the temptation to slip back into softness, to scroll before you create, to apologize before you speak, to chase belonging instead of truth. And every time you give in, weakness regains a little ground. That's why you must guard your standard like your life depends on it, because it does. Strength is not perfection, it is consistency. It is the choice to return to alignment again and again, even when it costs you comfort, even when it demands sacrifice. The final enemy of weakness is honesty. Not honesty with others, but honesty with yourself. Because the lies you tell yourself are the strongest chains you wear. You've said them before. "I'll change later. I'm already doing enough. It's not that bad," but Nietzsche would laugh at those lies. He would tell you that later is weakness, that enough is weakness, and that tolerating mediocrity is weakness. And in his way, he would leave you no escape but the truth that your life is not waiting, that the clock is moving whether you evolve or not. So kill the lies, kill the excuses, stand face to face with reality and let it burn away the softness. This is your choice now, and it will never be easier. It will never be gentler. You can return to your old patterns, put the mask back on, and live the rest of your life domesticated, polite, invisible. Or you can step forward unfiltered, unshakable, and dangerous. Dangerous not because you harm others, but because you cannot be harmed by weakness. Dangerous because you refuse to be ignored. Dangerous because your very presence forces the world to pay attention. That is the kind of human being Nietzsche wrote for. Not the fragile, not the endlessly apologetic, but the one who looked life directly in the eye and said, "I am not waiting. I am not asking. I am here." And so here we are at the end. You've made it this far, and that alone sets you apart. Most people would have clicked away. Most would have drowned themselves in another distraction. Most would have turned back the moment their weakness was touched. But not you. You're still here. Which means something in you is awake now. Something old, something raw, something dangerous. And now the question is no longer complicated. It is simple. Will you protect it or will you betray it? Because from this moment forward, weakness is no longer ignorance. It is a choice. And strength, your strength, has already begun.